support to work with Mr. President continuously to ensure that we increase economic performance and social cohesion.
Governors meet President Muhammadu Buhari, resolved to dismantle obstacles to national development.
Recommendations, but really our ultimate conclusion is that a process of comprehensive reform is needed.
9th Senate to pursue electoral reforms. Senate President assures European Union Election Observation Mission.
Nigerian Air Force continues offensive against bandits in Zamfara State.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our conversation on the state legislature and 20 years of Nigeria's democracy.
Remove the legislature, many say, and there will be no democracy. This is because it is the symbol of representation that is at the heart of democratic philosophy.
That's right, Blessing. Now, here in Nigeria, the legislature features prominently at the federal, state, and to a limited extent local government levels, where the citizens find direct representation in governance.
Of course, Kingsley, that is why we have decided to devote some time, already we started that yesterday, looking at the contributions of the legislature in the last 20 years of democratic practice in Nigeria. And that, like I said, started yesterday.
And during that conversation, Blessing, a number of issues came out which speak to the challenges and to some extent the achievements of the state legislature in the 20 years of Nigeria's uninterrupted democracy. Indeed, there were a number of matters arising, hence we are returning to the subject again this morning.
Yes, that's what I would say to, well, one of the popular demand now. It was as a result of other issues that were left hanging yesterday. We're taking up that particular one. So, it's on that note, we welcome you to today's edition of the program. Yesterday, we had some very interesting guests. I'm sure today promises to do even more. My name is Blessing Abu. It's good to have you join us on the program. We're broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA.
And I'm Kingsley Osalolo. I join my colleague Blessing to also welcome you to this edition of the program. It's been a fairly wet morning here, though the skies have brightened up at this time of day. Otherwise, a couple of hours ago, it was cats and dogs. So wherever you're watching us from, we hope that the weather is clement where you are and you can receive our signals sharp and clear. In the course of our program this morning, we have our regular complimentary segments, and these include newspaper review, business, and others. In the meantime, let's take the highlights of the morning news, and here is Abdul Malik Adio. Hello, Abdul Malik. Good morning. How was the rain?
Very chilly, and I kind of enjoyed it. Good morning, Kingsley and Blessing. President Muhammadu Buhari has signed into law 2 bills seeking the establishment of the National Institute for Security as well as amendment of the Federal Polytechnic Act. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, House of Representatives, Umar Yakubu, announced this while briefing the media.
The Council should have a reflection of the federal interest, whereby you have, in fact, a woman shall be a member of that council, as well as a person representing the area where the institute is sited, in addition to one of the alumnus of the institute. And of course, the rector would serve a 5-year tenure, and whereby an existing rector has served, was appointed for a 4-year tenure, would have an additional 1 year extended.
The Progressive Governors Forum has resolved to chart a pragmatic course in executing the renewed mandate given to the governing APC by Nigerians in dismantling obstacles to sustainable national development. Chairman of the forum and Governor of Kebbi State, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, announced this after leading the APC governors to an interactive session with President Muhammadu Buhari.
We offer our support to work with Mr. President continuously to ensure that we increase economic performance and social cohesion. We will be very more active in ensuring that investment in all the areas that can provide employment and incomes rapidly will increase. We will collaborate more to ensure that security is enhanced, particularly where it involves conflicts that are across state borders.
The European Union Election Observer Mission to Nigeria has explained that most of the recommendations contained in its report of the 2019 general elections in Nigeria border on legal reforms. The foreign mission stated this during an advocacy visit to President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawal, and Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila for intervention of the National Assembly.
Of those 30, we've identified 7 priority recommendations, but really our ultimate conclusion is that a process of comprehensive reform is needed.
The INEC particularly is one institution that has been supported fully by the National Assembly and will continue to do that through legislation to improve its capacity, but also through appropriations to ensure that it gets whatever it requires.
For us, we're going to hit the ground running in terms of electoral reforms, because you can, for me and for most of my colleagues, the process of elections is not just the election itself. The process is before the election, during the election, and after the election. That completes the process. So it's an ongoing thing.
Similarly, the Joint International Republican and National Democratic Institute released their final report on the 2019 general elections with 5 key recommendations ahead of the 2023 general elections.
It's important that very soon serious discussion happens about improvements or adjustments to the electoral process so that those things can be codified into law and preparations can be made to apply those new regulations and rules into future elections.
We see it, the vitality of this country, just the tremendous resources that Nigeria disposes, human capital, material resources. We know what Nigeria can contribute to the Nigerian people, what it means to the Nigerian people, but what this country can contribute to Africa and to the world.
Meanwhile, the presidency welcomes the joint report of the International Republic Institute and the National Democratic Institute of the 2019 general elections in Nigeria and recommendations for the 2023 general elections. A statement by Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, says the report shows clearly that President Muhammadu Buhari won the election by almost 4 million majority with a 14% margin. A statement, however, says the most important thing in an election is that victory reflects the will of the people. It says the administration intends to build on the innovations of the election that facilitated inclusiveness and participation, such as providing braille for the fiscally challenged people to cast their ballot. The air component of Operation Aridin Daji has degraded a camp and neutralized scores of armed bandits in airstrikes conducted at a location near Dangote village in Zamfara State. This is in continuation of the troop operations aimed at rooting out armed bandits from their safe havens within the various forests in the northwest of Nigeria. A statement by Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigerian Air Force Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola. The operation was executed based on credible human intelligence report indicating that some armed bandit leaders had assembled for an overnight meeting in a cluster of huts at the location to plan attack against nearby communities. Consequently, after confirmatory intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance, the air component dispatched 2 Alpha jets and an attack helicopter to strike the location. And that's the news we can take on Good Morning Nigeria. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Blessing.
The Aerial Assurance Challenge.
Oh, thank you. But what assurance can you give our daughter?
Everything. With the new look Aerial, I can even do the laundry.
Prove it then.
Okay. Let's make this stain even tougher. Now, let's wash the cloth with your detergent and with new look Aerial. Do you believe me now? Aerial, now in a new look pack.
NTA Television College Jos announces admissions into 2-year diploma programs in film and television production, television engineering, and broadcast journalism. The sale of forms will commence on the 13th of May and run through 30th July 2019. Admission forms can be obtained from all marketing offices, NTA state capital stations, zonal centers, or at the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos.
On payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA TV College. Applicants can also obtain the forms through the NTA TV College portal at www.ntatvc.edu.nj.
Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE or SSCE in relevant areas of study in not more than 2 sittings, including English and mathematics. All properly completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before 30th July 2019. For further inquiries, please visit our website at ntatvc.com or call 0803-3144-383.
NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Registrar, Announcer.
Enjoy the best of African football as NTA, Africa's largest television network and hotspots, Nigeria's foremost sports production and marketing company, bring you all 52 matches of the Africa Cup of Nations, Egypt 2019 live from June 21 to July 19, 2019. Yes, all 52 games will hit your screens in crystal clear digital quality. It's your guarantee of a memorable viewing experience and a wonderful cost-effective opportunity for corporate Nigeria to reach tens of millions of Nigerians. For sponsorship and commercial support, contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. Hot Sports, masters of the game. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Time now for the business report. Nigeria Trader Money and Market Social Investment Initiative wins Africa's most impactful financial inclusion award. Details of these as well as other stories with Comfort Amodu.
Nigeria Trader Money and Market Social Investment Initiative bagged Africa's most impactful financial inclusion award at the Africa Bank Award held in Equatorial Guinea. The organizers say the social investment program is thriving, especially in delivering financial products and services to wider parts of the society. A statement by Laolu Akonde, Senior Special Assistant to the President, Office of the Vice President, lauded the organizers for the recognition, noting that 10 million people are to benefit from the program. In the next 4 years, he added that 2 million Nigerians are currently benefiting from the program. And while investors have indicated interest in Nigerians' mango value chain, Ministry of Trade and Investment is to provide all necessary documents that can bring out the country's potential in the tree crops.
And then we can secure the proper financing. We hope to generate at least 400,000 mango trees in every state of the Federation.
In other business stories, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, NSE, has listed Lafarge, Corn Oil, and 32 other companies as defaulters, a minimum listing standard and timely disclosure. of their audited annual financial statements. According to NSC, sanctions for non-compliance with periodic financial disclosure obligations will attract a fine of 50% of its annual listing fee, including 25,000 naira for every day the issuer remains in default, among other sanctions. And investors lose 51.79 billion naira as market sentiment turns negative. NSE All Share Index dips by minus 0.39%. With business news, Comfort Amadou.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next for us, we'll take a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
Bayo Toby is in the studio for today's review. Welcome, Bayo.
Thank you, Blessing. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley.
The rains were quite heavy early today.
Yes. You know how it happens when you want to get out and the rains are there. Good morning, Nigeria.
That's right. You want to go back to bed.
Certainly.
Okay, let's begin with you, Blessing.
Okay. Let me start off with the Daily Trust. Just below the nameplate, we have 3 stories there. Veritai, while we are recording setbacks. Want to find out about that? Page 3 will let you into it. Federal government okays 5-year single term for poly rectors. That's polytechnic rectors now. More details still on page 3. Now, oil production hits 2019 budget targets. This is coming from NNPC. More details about that on page 17. Leading for the Daily Trust today, we have 3 weeks after inauguration. Buhari yet to announce key appointments. And there is, right to that, APC governor's visit President Aufotas alongside that particular story. The story starts right on the front page, continues on page 5. And there's a graphic representation of how presidents, that's past president now, including the present one, made key appointments since 1999. You get to see that there. Just below that, we have discussions on to resolve feud with Emir Sanusi. This is coming from Kano State Governor Umar Ganduje. Page 3 will let you into that story. Okay, quickly now to the leadership. Leading for the leadership, President Muhammadu Buhari's intervention to state hits 2 trillion naira. With the rider, federal government saves 273.8 billion naira from IPPIS implementation. More details on page 4. The National Assembly, of course, will sanitize electoral processes, says Senate President Ahmed Lawan. The rider, 2019 polls, Army absorbs personnel of wrongdoing. There are other stories, but let Kingsley come in at this point to this.
All right, I have the Daily Independent newspaper. Above the name flag, there are 3 headlines we're taking from there. We can't make presidents and governors' asset declarations public, and that's according to the CCB, that's Code of Conduct Bureau. Details of that story can be found on page 5. Fashala's ministry stopped us from fixing Apapa Road, NPA alleges. NPA stands for Nigerian Pulse Authority. Details of that story can be found on page 43. Governor Abdul Razak suspends Kwara local government councils for 6 months. Right out there, that's a related story. Governor Ihedioha appoints interim local government areas chairman. That's on page 5. Now, lead story of it, the Independent says with triple decker headline, Edo crisis worsens as 16 lawmakers elect deny inauguration. 3 riders. Security operatives lay siege to Assembly complex. Political actors take fight to Golden Tulip Hotel. Governor Baseki and APC chairman congratulate Speaker. And then also on the front page, beginning from the first column on the left-hand side, Airtel has filed application for listing on NSE. That's according to SEC. NSE is the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and SEC is Securities and Exchange Commission, page 5. Also there on page 5 in greater detail, rectors to serve single term of 5 years. And on page 43, you can't remove CJ, that's Chief Judge, court tells Kogi Governor and Assembly. Now, secondly story, right at the foot of the front page, below the photographs there, APC may expel Zamfara former governor Yari and deputy chair Shuaibu. Parties, governors visit Buhari, skip discussion on ministerial appointment. That's page 4. And then lastly, as a strip headline on the bottom page, on the bottom of the front page, armed robbers, not cash-eating gorilla, stole 6.8 million naira. That's according to Ganduje, page 43. Once again, armed robbers, not cash-eating gorilla, stole 6.8 million.
The governor actually added that there's no gorilla in the Kano Zoo. Maybe the armed robbers were wearing gorilla marks. Anyway.
Absolutely, Bayo. So either the gorilla was an armed robber or the armed robbers were gorillas.
That's it. Well, there is a concern raised by the Chief of Army Staff, and is that there is insufficient commitment by some officials and men in the counter-insurgency. And he says that accordingly, soldiers are unwilling to carry out assignments. A reluctant truce will no longer be tolerated. And he has said that such officers and men who do not comply with operational directives must find their way out of the service. This was the theme of the workshop for middle-level officers. And the title of the theme was quite apt. It says, Lead agreed that there is need to increase investment in agriculture and promise to provide cooperation increasingly for the economic performance of the nation, and particularly giving cooperation for security so that there will be social cohesion. The other story is also about PPIS. The federal government has saved as much as 273 billion from using the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information Services. This was disclosed by the Accountant General of the Federation, and he says that presently 561 agencies are enrolled, and the personnel strength is 755,422. Before 2015, there were only 288 agencies, but now the Accountant General says already all ministries and departments have been enrolled. The police and all paramilitary have also been domiciled on IPPIS, and the Nigerian Army, Navy, and Air Force have also been concluded. Now, he was addressing administrators of the universities, and they were expressing concern that joining IPPIS will compromise their autonomy, and the Accountant General of the Federation gave assurance that the IPPIS has capacity to accommodate 2 million personnel and is also flexible enough to accommodate their concerns, particularly in areas of sabbatical, visitation, honorarium, and on-end allowances. He says the payroll will be prepared by the universities, but coordinated by APIS. So the total management of the human resources will rest squarely on the university, so their autonomy would not be concerned. You may recall that the president has given directives that the IPPIS, everybody must migrate to the IPPIS. So the IPPIS and
BVN?
Yes, have gone a long way to save the nation a lot of resources.
I'm just wondering the extent of the use of IPPIS at the state and local government levels.
That will be, I think, the next step of challenge. For now, I think the concern is at the federal level.
It's a federal idea, right?
Yes, but it's a federal idea. If the state feel that it will benefit from it, they can borrow a leaf from it. Don't forget that just about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, in fact, about 3 countries, Gambia, Tanzania, which country, came to come and learn from our single treasury account.
TSA, right?
TSA.
Yes, TSA. That's a useful thing. We do hope that state governments will borrow a leaf from what the federal is doing. The story on the armed robbers and not cash-eating gorilla stole 6.8 million, according to the governor of Kano. Maybe we should clarify it. Was there a report of an armed robbery at the zoo? Because sometimes we confuse burglary with armed robbery. Burglary. If maybe the safe or this was maybe the premises or whatever was just boggled, not just armed robbers, you know, not
invading
armed robbers invading the place. There are two different offenses.
Well, there's
even though they are
felonies. That the security men there were threatened with a knife or even a pen. That becomes an armed robbery.
Yeah, but was there a report?
But
that's the issue.
His Excellency must have been briefed, and so in his debriefing of the press, he actually indicated that there was no gorilla, but there was armed robbery.
But I agree. I mean, I've not been to that zoo for so many years. So if he says there's no gorilla, no gorilla. But it's just the classification of the alleged offense, whether it's a burglary or it's an armed robbery. You know, where an armed robbery is different from a burglary.
That's true.
You know, if assuming our studios were so unsafe that at the close of work, some persons gain access in and then make away with our equipment, you know, safely, and they have a safe passage. It's simple burglary, not an armed robbery. But it becomes a different thing if, as you said, you know, somebody is wielding a knife or even a toy gun to gain access.
Yeah. Anyway.
The investigation will unravel it.
Exactly. Now that it's been posted this way. Okay, let's see to some other story. Below the photograph you have on the front page of the leadership, that story is NNPC targets $7 billion FDI, that's foreign direct investment, in 2019. This is coming from the group GMD, because that's up stories on page 29. Nigerian Air Force destroys bandit scam, kills many in Zamfara. A story straight on page 33. Other stories, President Muhammadu Buhari signs Polytechnic Amendment Bill. That I think is another story that I found on Daily Trust. Now, I'm still reconciling with Emir Sanusi. This is coming from Governor of Kano, Umar Ganduje. That story is on page 2. And another story on the foreign scene now, United Nations seeks independent probe of Morsi's death. That's the former president of Egypt.
Just two quick stories. One is about the National Youth Service Corps. It's 46 years ago that it was established. And so General Gowon was saying that it has become an institution that has mentored graduate youth towards becoming responsible leaders in our society. And guess what? Up to date, 4,071,581 persons have served in the National Youth Service Corps by 2018. I was lucky to be on the 6th batch. Which batch were you?
Batch blessing.
These days, they even have batch A, B, C in the one specific year.
That's right. You saw there was this particular joke over the weekend, because of the week, about asking the corps member what the classification of batches were A, B, C, and he went about saying the batch A were for extremely brilliant students, the geniuses, and the batch B were those, okay, maybe second class, lower, and all of then the batch C, of Odiolodos, whatever it meant by that.
No, that certainly, it must have been a very big joke. Yeah, but the interesting thing is that if we go by it, in the 45 years, we have an average of about 90,480 per year. But guess what? In the first batch, there were 2,364 from 6 universities. Today, graduates from 170 universities, 125 polytechnics are enrolled in NYSC. So you can see.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very important point that you have raised in terms of the anniversary, 46th anniversary of the NYSC. Early on, if you recall, graduates of colleges of education, in other words, those who were NC holders, were also part of the scheme. But I think that I'm not quite sure when exactly they got excused, from the scheme.
When in our own batch we had the graduates of colleges of education were coming in because they were supposed to boost the universal primary education, UPE, that was established then. So they were avenue to provide teachers across the country for the program. And I think when they felt that the population of the school enrolled and then had reached, and also the annual population of NYSC graduates were getting beyond control, so they had to scale it down.
Must have been either in the late 80s or early 90s. There's a story. I don't know whether we're going to have enough time to discuss this. I read it. Governor Abdul Razak suspends Kwara local government council's for 6 months. And Governor Ihedioha appoints interim local government areas chairman. Well, of course, each state has its own local government law.
Yes.
Perhaps the powers to do this actually reside in the governor. But you ask yourself, what is the tenure of a local government council that you suspend it unilaterally for 6 months? What there is left for them to do? So, and the same thing, of course, with Imo, you're firing chairman. This is part of what we probably will need to talk about and then get persons on how the local government system can be better managed or better administered for service delivery. It isn't that you're just putting persons there. Local governments have their functions clearly spelled out. First, the fourth schedule to the Constitution as amended, plus, of course, what other responsibilities may inherit from the appropriate local government law. If you recall, by another story, we didn't have time, it's not on the front pages. The new Lagos governor, Jide Sanwo-Olu, while he was governor-elect, there was a report that he said he was going to fix Apapa traffic gridlock in 60 days. You recall?
Yes.
And we then said, don't make promises that you can't keep.
Yes.
We understand that it's been a U-turn by way of explanation, that, I didn't quite say that. We said we're going to evaluate the problem in 60 days.
The realities are done on
Absolutely.
Particularly that Papa Gridlock is a federal road, by the way.
That's right.
The other concern is about world population. The United Nations is saying that the world population by 2050 will rise to about 10 billion, and that is the alarm. Currently, the world population is about 7.7 billion, and they say that in 30 years, the population will be 9.7 billion. And this is coming from only 9 countries out of the 196 countries that are under the auspices of the United Nations. And 3 of the nations are in Asia: India, Pakistan, and Indonesia, the United States, and the other are Nigeria and 4 other African nations. And it is said that in spite of the fact that world population growth is annually dropping, these 9 countries are likely to accentuate world population by the year 2050.
Bayo, thanks for that report. We are having the population crisis, as the experts say, in Nigeria. And the report also indicates that, contrary to popular belief, there are more men than women in Nigeria in the first instance, and more men than women in the world.
More men than women in the world?
In the world.
I even judge. There are 2 men here. I'm just eliminating.
In some parts of the world, particularly in Europe, they are now giving incentives for men to come and marry their daughter because there are more women than men.
Yes.
I think it's in the Scandinavian countries.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I'm sure there will be qualifiers to the men. That they have all kinds of adjectives, particularly the mothers, who would want their daughters hooked up. Okay, let's take our editorial this morning. It's coming from the Punch newspaper, and it's at page 29. The poisons we live with. And part of the reference, of course, is to the use of tires in preparing roast meat and other items for public consumption.
Yes, Kingsley, and not only that, there's also concern expressed by the Food Agriculture Organization about what is described as toxins, and it has identified 2 of them, alpha toxins and mycotoxins, as well as heavy metals, which include lead and pesticides. Of recent, you heard that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture had advised that people should wash their beans thoroughly before they eat it, because in some of the rural areas, people use pesticides to preserve beans. And if you come and boil them without thoroughly washing them, the tendency is that you are eating poison and people are suffering. And this alpha toxin is particularly dangerous because it is said to be one of the factors that undermine our agricultural export. You will recall we used to have groundnut pyramids. And this thing is just like fungus, and it affects our agricultural produce. And so when you send it abroad, they test it and they see that there's alpha toxins, they send it back. It also affects maize. And therefore, the editorial is saying that the agencies and regulatory authorities must be up and doing to check this. It also laments that the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration has indicated that 80% of its equipment for certifying drugs and other items have broken down. So we are in danger. And also, they also pointed out what Kingsley has raised, using tires to roast meat And there is another danger that was pointed out, because this survey was carried out in Lagos and Kano, two of the most populous cities. Imagine, for instance, in Lagos, you have 7 veterinary officers inspecting 3,000 cows that are slaughtered in a day. How can that be possible?
This is a serious public health issue.
Exactly.
And it calls for enlightenment and enforcement of the laws. And that's why, people take ill fairly frequently, and then
come down with all manners of strange diseases.
Absolutely, and then they will be blaming it on attacks.
Just 2 weeks ago, alarm over poisonous kwama, you remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Blaming it on attacks.
Of course, they use the same tire to roast some of those ones, and sometimes you even get to see fruits being ripened. Naturally.
Carbide, yes.
That's right. If you take naturally ripened fruits and the ones that are artificially ripened, the difference is clear.
Yes.
In
For
terms
instance,
of
for banana, the artificially ripened ones, you see that they are still green. But the naturally ripened ones get a yellow color, and sometimes you have brown spots on it. Those are the naturally ripened ones.
Otherwise, all right, Bayo Atoyebe, we'd like to thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
We'll see you again tomorrow. We're not quite sure what the skies look like now, but if it begins to rain as you're going home, get drenched.
Thank you very much.
What a wish.
All right, so it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be going over to the state legislatures, second installment of our conversation on how they have fared and what can be done to rescue them from their supine position, 20 years of our uninterrupted democracy.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Team huddle.
But we lost.
Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
One football confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations, Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hot Sports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is Good Morning Nigeria. If you're just joining us, we're broadcasting live on the network service of the NTA. Now, to kickstart our conversation, we're taking a look at State Houses of Assembly and 20 years of Nigeria's democracy. This conversation actually took off yesterday. So here are some of the contribution of guests on the program put together by Victor Azu.
For the past 20 years, to the best of my knowledge,
the legislature at the state level operated like an appendage of the executive arm of government, because they lack that independence to sit down and even decide, even to perform their constitutional responsibility, despite the fact that the Constitution has actually given them the rights to operate without any interference. But unfortunately, because they lack independence, financial independence as a matter of fact, that has actually affected the level of performance of the legislature at the state level.
The effectiveness of a State House of Assembly must not be measured by the extent to which the Assembly disagrees with the executive. We must remember that, there is room for harmony, and that even though we have checks and balances and separation of power, the whole intention, the hope is that we can have smooth running governance.
The legislative arm of government has so many problems that bedevils its performance in the last 20 years, starting from our method of leadership recruitment, the rate of turnover, godfatherism, executive excessive manipulation and control, and a lack of funding. So many that, has constituted a great impediment towards their effective, daily performance.
We need institutions that will help members of the legislature make sense of some of the bills or some of the issues that come before them. The next one is about appointments. You find a governor places before the State Assembly a list of 13 persons that are supposed to be appointed commissioners. You find very funny Mickey Mouse questions that are asked the nominees and all of that. The rigor that one would expect, in the first place, there's this talk about if you are, apart from the office of the Attorney General, I doubt whether any other person is indicated as, well, I'm going to appoint this person as Commissioner for Finance or Commissioner for Education or Commissioner for this. We must have that in place also, so that the legislator is then in a position to say, well, from your antecedents, I'm not quite sure this person will be able to discharge this responsibility. You appoint a lawyer, for instance, as a Commissioner for Education, or you appoint a classroom teacher as Commissioner for Agriculture. What do you expect?
Thank you very much, Victor, for those insights. Now, joining us in the studio to discuss the topic, continue with the topic, I'd like to welcome Right Honorable Victor Ochai. He is a former Speaker, Delta State House of Assembly. He's an engineer as well as a lawyer. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Also with us in the studio, yes, you saw him in part of the clip. I'd like to welcome back to the studio Dr. Josiah Sabo Kinte, former Speaker of Taraba State House of Assembly. It's our pleasure to have you back on the program.
Thank you very much.
Kingsley, other guests.
All right. Also with us in the studios, we'd like to welcome Mazi Afamusigwe, is the former General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association. Pleasure to have you again, Mazi.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. And joining us from our Ibadan Network Center, I would like to welcome the former Speaker of the Oyo State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Kehinde Ayola. Honorable Ayola, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Good morning. Point of corrections. I'm not a speaker in the House, but a whip in the House of Assembly, Senate Assembly. So please, that should be corrected. And my full name is Honorable Ayola Adeleke Amos, representing Ogbomoso North State Constituency in the Senate Assembly. So please, take that corrections.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ayola. We had a mix-up, and that mix-up will be corrected right away by our graphics persons. But the other aspect of Ogbomoso, I didn't quite get that, but Honorable Ayola and the other things will be noted, plus your contribution, the fact that you were a chief whip and not a speaker. Thanks a lot for the corrections. But let's begin the conversation straight away by bringing in the former speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly, Honorable Victor Ochai. You listen to the excerpts of the conversation that we had yesterday. Plus, of course, you're familiar with, I believe, the views abroad with regard to the assessment of state legislatures since 1999. In your opinion, what have you found, or what have you seen, and what have you experienced?
Well, thank you for having me. If you want to do an assessment, in my opinion, well, the wheel of democracy grinds very slowly. And so I'll say we have done, to a great extent, the state legislatures have contributed in no small measure, but not such that you can quantify to be substantial in a holistic approach or holistic assessment. However, it is part of the Constitution that we practice, the 1999 Constitution, and the limitations of the Constitution as it affects the State Houses of Assembly. In the first instance, they are not financially autonomous, not until recently when the alteration of the Constitution has permitted that to happen, and that is yet to even take off. You still see a lot of incursions of the executive into the state legislature. It actually should be their business and how to run it and ensure they become a proper check to the executive arm of government. But prior to this time, it's like my former colleague said, is like more or less an appendage to the executive arm of government. In one or two cases, there were times where the state legislatures also veered away from the executive arm of government and had their own stand. It's always a battle between the executive and the state legislatures, but sometimes they are twisted. You can even imagine a situation where, at a point, the National Assembly, during the alteration of the Constitution, offered to give the state legislatures autonomy. And they voted against themselves, that they don't want autonomy. Not because, if you ask them, not because they did that. If you
asked us, you were one of them.
Okay, I agree with you. Okay, the truth is, that was not their wish, but they were compelled to do that which their masters wanted, as it then was. But by and large, it has come to stay. So that's why I said the wheel of democracy grinds very slowly, but surely we will definitely get to a point where things will be corrected. And I do hope that as we cascade down, 20 years from now, we should be looking at the state legislatures taking their stand, and that will improve the quality of the legislation and the quality of persons who go into state legislatures. You will now be sure that you have competent hands, because you don't want to come from a constituency, bring in somebody who will not be able to represent the constituency properly, and also hold forth when it comes to issues that affect the state. In resume, my assessment of 20 years down the road is it's better than what it was before now. It's better to have the House sitting as the bastion or the symbol of democracy than not having it at all. So we're making progress. Or they are making progress, because I've left them.
Sorry, I'm just wondering. Listen, I mean, he's saying that, I don't. What is the basis for comparison? You're comparing to the military regime, which is clearly not democratic, or you're comparing it to the Second Republic, which was a full-blown democracy?
Well, let me say now, if you want to do a comparison between the Fourth Republic now, that's where we are now, and the Second Republic, or the Third, I'll say I don't think they have measured up very well, because I think those who came in the Second and Third Republic did far better than those in the Fourth Republic. Then again, the Constitution, you had people who were much more matured. It wasn't a game of trying to settle the boys, so you have your stooges as members of the House, so you could turn them around. There were people who they had ideals they ran for. The parties then had ideologies that they ran with. And today, you don't have that. It's, because you served the master, and so you were compensated. Well, some of us didn't come from that school. I, for instance, didn't come from the school of masters. I came squarely from the point of my constituency, voting me in from the opposition. So I quite appreciate when I see what is happening in other areas of the legislature. But then, in comparison to two republics, the Fourth Republic is not there yet.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Chair. Let's get to Mazi before we come back to Dr. Kinte, who was here yesterday. Yes, there are issues, no doubt, and there are different positions being held, different submissions about this arm of government, or that is arm of government now at the state level. That is just more of the executive. But then it's clearly spelled out in the Constitution. Have they been able to take on the spirit of the Constitution as well as the latest?
Well, I think Honorable Oche was candid enough to admit that that hasn't been the case. And it's really very bad, and the people are the losers at the end of it all, because it has robbed the polity of accountability, the requisite checks on the rampaging executive. And unfortunately, in some cases, law enforcement agencies are unwittingly drawn into it, and also become a part of messing things up, if you may forgive my choice of words. Now, why do I say this? You say situations where a house wants to stand up to an executive, wants to ask questions, and suddenly the house is prevented from sitting. And everybody pretends that there's nothing wrong with it. And then suddenly, with a fewer number of the legislators, a governor engineers a change of leadership and refuses to recognize the authentic leadership of the House and recognizes a minority leadership. And then you see police happened in Rivers and a number of states. You see the police escorting this minority to go and sit. And that is why the House of Assembly has remained like an orphan, not even an appendage. It's more like a child who has lost both parents. So it takes whatever the executive dishes out to it. And because of the unbridled lust for power by state governors to control everything in an imperial manner, they now handpick those who can stand for election. And most times they want persons who are not qualified in many ways, with little education, as they determine. And so these persons are eternally grateful to them for allowing them to be given tickets, funding their campaigns. And so it is not unheard of for members of the House to first go to consult the governor as to what to do. So you see, most bills do not receive any robust discussion. Sometimes laws are passed in a matter of minutes. They suspend all their rules. And in 10 minutes, a budget is passed, every appointment is passed. Once the governor wants anything, he gets it. Even when people know that those things are not in the interest of the people. They keep passing them. Questions are never asked. A governor is never held to account. You've never heard of the Public Accounts Committee of the House inviting the State Auditor General, asking critical questions. Budgets are never discussed. They're never evaluated. They're just passed. And that is why we say we all, at the end of the day, are the victims. It doesn't matter they've been given financial autonomy. It may well, in the Nigerian sense, end up being an opportunity to join in chopping. Not necessarily to give them the guts to stand up to their constitutional duties. The Constitution has made ample provisions to enable these legislators to exercise their duty. But an executive that holds the reins of controls the reins of terror will prevent them from sitting. Even the clerk sees himself as serving at the pleasure of the governor. So they will not even give you access to the House. A mess will be taken away. These things can't happen in anywhere but Nigeria. And people are walking away that are not interested. We pretend these things are not important. And that is why you keep seeing decline in governance. And if I may bring into it, that is why the governors are up in arms that the local governments cannot access their funds. Their money must be put in jack, forgetting that the Constitution says federal government will put money meant for local government in the joint account, and the state governments will put their own. They never put. They take away the money. And they are up in arms because they make this local government chairman to sign that they've collected this money, and this money is withdrawn in cash, and there's no accountability. And the House that should ask this question has lost his mouth, not even his voice. He can't say anything. So the governor pays you allowances. If you're a good speaker, you keep getting allowances. They approve foreign trips for you. And then if you're not, they remove you tomorrow. If the other man tries to do another thing, they remove him. They keep removing. And procedures are never followed. And courts are proved incapable of helping to stem this thing by handing down judgments that will also ensure that these things don't happen. We can go on and on and on. But the bottom line is that the state legislature has been an abysmal failure. It has not lived up to its constitutional billing.
Mazi Afamosigwe, thank you very much there for your opening salvo. Let's return to our Ibadan Network Center and get the former Chief Whip of the Oyo House of Assembly, 7th Assembly, said, Honorable Ayola, to give us his comments. You've listened to what the other guests have said in their opening statements. Tell us something about your experience and your assessment of state legislatures.
Yeah, what I notice is that during the time of our own tenure in the 7th Assembly, we are not allowed to perform as expected. Reason, any little things, we have to contact the governor, and if he like, he may provide it. If he don't like, he may not. And this makes us not to be able to perform. That is why we in the 7th Assembly, we decided that we will not listen to any governor, not to participate in looking for autonomous. Because, you know, for the past 6, 5, and 7, they have been debating on autonomous for House of Assembly. But all our governors in Nigeria always go against it because they know that is the source of their revenue, where they are putting their hands to do what they like. And that make the honorable useless. Because if governors say this is what he wants, and you say no, he will not allow you to get even your allowances, your running costs. He may delay it. So due to that, the 5th, the 6th didn't stand on their feet to support the autonomous of assembly, but the best assembly ever produced by Oyo State, the 7th Assembly, stand on their feet. The governor tried all what he can do to suppress us that we should not support the autonomous. And we say no. We voted in the House in support of autonomous, and we thank God. We may not even benefit from it, but we know our people coming will soon benefit of it, and they will be independent of their own. Because there's no independence of House of Assembly throughout this country. The governor did what they want on House of Assembly. They didn't allow them to perform their normal duty as a legislature. They didn't allow them to even look into the local government, how they perform. And the local government is under the House of Assembly to control. But the government didn't allow this thing. And that is why the job of House of Assembly is done throughout this country. Well, we pray as the autonomies has been given to the House of Assembly. I think now they will be able to do their job fervently. They will not even depend on see governor before they will do their job. And the governor cannot force them to do anything because they don't need anything from him financially, so they will be able to perform their duty. So I thank the federal government for giving this opportunity to the House of Assembly to be autonomous. And we pray that from now there will be changes in governance and the performances of House of Assembly throughout the country will change. They will be able to approve whatever the executive sent to them if they see it is right. If it's not right, they will just dump it. So I thank federal government for that. And Oyo State in particular, I'm advising the executive, the new executive, that it should not use authority on the House of Assembly as the past leaders have did. The past governor, they thought they are in all. They mess up the members as they like. So I'm advising our new governor, Seyi Makinde, to take good care of their member, and they will work towards the progress of Oyo State, because Oyo State has lagged behind in legislative. upon all what 7th Assembly tried, but this governor didn't allow them to see the light of the day. So I'm advising that the new governor should take good care of the House of Assembly. They will pass the bill when they see the bill is right, and all what they're supposed to need to make the house work is to make provision for it. I think that is, because if I say I want to repeat all what my other colleagues have said in the past, I will be repeating for nothing. But all these things based on the governor to let these people perform, let them perform in their constituency where they are elected, allow them to do a free empowerment in their constituency, let them do a little project within the midst of House of Assembly in their own constituency. And I'm advising this next assembly, the best thing is to work in hand with your constituency where you are voted in. And the major thing for you to do is to see that you allowed your people who voted you in to enjoy the dividend of democracies in your area. So God will help us in Nigeria and in Oyo State entirely.
All right, Honorable Ayola Adeleke, thank you very much there for your opening comments. We asked you earlier to tell us something about your experience. You were Chief Whip in the 7th Assembly. What years were those for the 7th Assembly? Was it 2011 to 2015? That's just by the way. But considering the state of the House of Assembly, what then was your function as a Chief Whip?
To 2015, that is the 7th Assembly, where I am a whip in the House of Assembly, Oyo State.
What then was your role? I mean, because a Chief Whip is supposed to perform certain functions, but if the State House of Assembly is virtually powerless, what then was your function? You were a principal officer. How did you, try to ensure that you performed part of, if not all of your constitutional duties?
We try our best during the 7th Assembly, but the major things I've always said is that our governor, Ajimobi Abiola, didn't allow the House to perform as House of Assembly. Because, especially like me, I'm PDP. APC is the one in government. If you want to do something because they get the most majority in the House, the governor will call them and tell them that this thing don't allow our opponent in the House to suppress you. Some of the APC who are minded like us support us in many issues, but still, the governor didn't allow it to see the light of the day.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Ayola. We'll get back to you in the course of the discussion. Now, let's bring in Dr. Josiah Sabo Kentia, former Speaker of Taraba State. Yes, part of the outlook yesterday, different submissions, and just like we have already pointed out to at least every one of you, the hamstringing of the state legislature versus the executive in the state. Now, the vibrancy to democracy is the separation of powers to the different arms of government and how it affects the people. Entrenching democracy itself from 1999 till date, there are instances of rancor. And what exactly do we make of what is supposed to be for the people? If what we're hearing today is, okay, being Armstrong here, no autonomy here, and even pointed out aspect of people, the legislature actually voting against this autonomy themselves. So what is there for the people?
Yes, just as I said yesterday, if we are to review the performance of the state legislature from 1999 to date, to 2019. You know, in addition to what my other colleagues have said, you know, the people actually were not able to assess the dividends of democracy to the extent, to the level to which one had expected. Let me just give you an example. You know, I was voted in to the State Assembly in 2007. First, I was appointed the Chairman Committee on Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. In the course of even performing my duties, at a point, in fact, after 1 year or so, I was removed. The committees were dissolved. In fact, they went to the point of creating a committee on diaspora in Taraba State House of Assembly. And I was made the chairman because of my stern position of ensuring that let there be accountability and transparency in the act of governance. So you can imagine that kind of a thing. And we go to a point that the executive tried to kind of please the leadership then by giving them certain, I don't want to say privileges, giving them things that should be able to at least encourage them. Unfortunately, some of this project that was awarded to some of this leadership for them to even help provide essential amenities for the people were not even done. So, you know, when you look at it, you know, my colleague mentioned about issue of recruitment, which in fact we started discussing yesterday. The level at which the executive then used to kind of influence the recruitment of members. They always want to bring in people that don't even know what they are supposed to do. People that don't even know their constitutional responsibility as an elected member of the state legislature. I was discussing with a friend yesterday. We had an example in one of the states in the Northeast. I wouldn't want to mention the state. The governor influenced one of his errand boys to be the Speaker of the State House of Assembly. And as a matter of fact, that Speaker was not an educated person. The members went to the governor to complain that this person you appointed as our Speaker cannot preside over the House. He's not educated, he's not experienced. The governor sent for the Speaker to come. When the Speaker came and met him in the office, the governor asked the Speaker to write his name. The Speaker wrote his name. He said, you should pronounce the name. He pronounced it. He said, you see, it means you can read. And your colleagues are saying that you cannot read, that you are not intelligent, that you should just go back and do your work. And that's how it continued. So in that kind of circumstance, what do you expect the state legislature to do? At a point when I was just an other member then, I was the chairman of the House Committee on Finance and Appropriation. The governor brought the budget to the House, and in the night, the members of the committee were summoned to the government house. The governor told us that, look, let me tell you, Chairman, the figure I brought, the budget I brought, don't even alter one thing there. Even a kobo, don't add a kobo, don't remove a kobo. The way we brought it, just go and pass it tomorrow and bring it back to, and it was done. So in that kind of circumstance, what do you expect the people to benefit from? That you are an elected member, you are representing a constituency, and you cannot make an input even to the state budget. So those were the kind of situations most of us operated, to the point that if you allow me to even say, honestly speaking, the people were not able to actually get the benefit of democracy at the state level, if you want to compare vis-a-vis the performance of the state legislature within the last 20 years.
All right, Dr. Kente, thank you very much. Let's bring in again the former Speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly. And what emerges from all of this is that the state houses of assembly are not functioning in an oasis, as it were. There are examples they could emulate, some would argue, from the National Assembly, for instance, or, seek to behave otherwise. Why have we had this lingering challenge of state houses of assembly not emulating good practice from the National Assembly?
Well, let me see. The State House of Assembly, they draw their rules from the rules of the House of Reps, House of Representatives, and so emulating good practice ought to come right from there. But the issue is not the rules, it's in the implementation of the rules. that will give them the bite that you really want to see. And again, it goes down to the foundations of the legislature. Who are the members who come, who get voted in? And when they get voted in, what influences them? Is most times the biggest influence is the influence of the governor of the state, because he wants to micromanage the legislature to suit his purpose, or his or her purpose. That is the biggest problem that the state legislatures have had. Not in sometimes they do emulate. I mean, they emulate sometimes when they try to stand on their own, when there are things that really affect them and they need to say, we need to take a position. I mean, again, it's about the individual who becomes the head of the legislature and how he manages his colleagues who are members, because you're just first amongst equals, to be able to push through whatever you want to do. But the society, if you ask me the solutions, because we can go on and speak about what the problems are, but we need to start looking at what are the solutions at the end of the day. For me, the society is being too docile, and they need to get to a point where they need to start speaking up. And one of the biggest problems we have is not in the people we govern. It's in the elites who govern. I'll give you an example. As a speaker, we had a situation where kidnapping became a very big menace. And so we said, okay, as a legislature, we needed to put up a situation. No, we had to look for ways, very stern, to stop it. Because then you arrest them, but there's no part of the law that allows you to deal with them decisively in the way and manner that will serve as a deterrent. So we passed a law and said, okay, we had to kill any kidnapper found. We kill, you will be death sentence, and then at the same time destroy any building where you keep their victims. Well, my governor then was a medical doctor, and he said, well, he was not going to append his signature on any bill that would take life. We said, well, he sent back the bill, and we vetoed the bill, and we as a house overrode his veto. Just the way the NDDC Act is today. In copying, there's a section of the Constitution, sections 105 thereabout, that allows you to veto, override his veto, the governor's veto. But then what happened thereafter? Oh, you see people coming to say, who are you? You override the governor's veto. You want to prove that you are this, you are that. That's the kind of influence. And who are those saying this? The elites, who ought to know that it is for the benefit of the people, not. I mean, if you had kidnapped me as a speaker, of course, state government will have to pay. But the ordinary man who gets kidnapped, who pays for them? And sometimes they die. They kill them. So you need to take stern measures. But then, again, like I said, in solving the issue, we need to start dealing. The public will have to start speaking up and rising up against things that they find offensive, legislations that should not be. They should rise up and speak against it. 2, the legislature in itself, state legislatures, suffer a big setback. Now, if you look at the conditions you have to go through in the Constitution to become a member of the House, if you're working, you have to resign your appointment or whatever you're doing to come get there. And at the end of the day, you're going to come out with a severance package, which is little or nothing, and you're expected to maybe put all your time in it. And you find that when they do that, at the end of the day, they come out looking wretched. Most often than not, go and see the forum of former legislators. We call them non-sitting legislators. You weep at the level where they have deteriorated. Not because when you serve in government you should go and make money, but it should give you a leverage where you can be able to leverage on and do a whole lot and survive and be someone who has a stand in the society. But I give you this example. Now, having been a member of the State House Assembly, you have become a politically exposed person. Automatically, anywhere internationally, you can't do international business without being checked. Your bank, you can't open bank accounts, you're checked because you have been exposed politically. So you suffer, you carry a burden that nobody looks at helping you to resolve. While serving, you're also being checked so that, you don't go beyond the point. So it's like coming to serve, be ready to be wretched, because if you're not being checked by the anti-graft agencies, by people sending frivolous things that don't mean anything, they want to also deal with you outside your political life. You cannot stand and do your own business because the laws, being a politically exposed person is assumed you have just stolen money. So you are branded. So the public also has to find a way to do that. Then we need to evolve a system where we can plug and play. It is because we are yet to evolve a system where you can plug and play. That is why we have the kind of issues that we have today. Because I don't see any reason why the position of the legislature is well spelled out, but in carrying it out in reality, bringing it to bear is not as easy as it appears. When the separation of powers, the idea of separation of powers as espoused by Baron de Montesquieu, these are the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary form the government. They complement each other. There's serious walls, but those walls are permeable, meaning you can cooperate, but you must draw the limit when you have to draw the limit.
Okay, Honorable Chair, thanks a lot. You've raised a number of pertinent issues. I'm just wondering, a blessing, since Honorable Chair was talking about the constitutional aspect, I would like us to bring in Mazi Alpha Mosigwe. Mazi Alpha, you already kicked off by itemizing instances of, and we all know this, by the way, instances of gross abuse of the provisions of the Constitution. What, in your opinion, should be done to retrieve those relevant provisions of the Constitution and give life to them according to the intendment of the framers of the Constitution?
You see, I always say, sir, that our problem in Nigeria is not the absence of adequate laws, but our inability to abide by those laws, our scant regard for the rule of law. And that is why you see so many things going on in Nigeria, and there appears to be no end in sight. People are not held responsible and accountable. So you say thugs invaded the house, and there's a video footage of who those thugs are, and there's no investigation, nobody's charged to court. Somebody goes to carry the mace, smashes people's heads, or runs away. You have enough visuals of who this person or these persons are. Nothing gets done. We are fast deteriorating to a society of where anything goes. Just do it and get away with it. And so police is not interested in charging kidnappers or alleged armed robbers most of the time to court, because they do not also believe that the justice system will work, or they are not ready to do any thorough investigation, so they tell you that there was an exchange of fire, or they tried to escape and police gunned them down. So impunity reigns. People believe in knee-jerk reaction. If you can react immediately, react. So even the populace adopts vigilante justice. Oh, he pickpocket. He tried to pickpocket. The person gets lynched. Oh, he has taken somebody's private part. The person gets killed. Nobody cares to find out whether this is true. I'm just trying to show you how this has affected the entire gamut of ramifications of society. A society that has not thought it important to prioritize law enforcement, to put in place proactive measures to ensure that certain things don't happen, where people do not understand that leadership imposes responsibilities and that you're supposed, like Caesar's wife, to be above board, and that society must show its ability to bring people to book. Otherwise, it becomes a question of if you succeed, you're fine. So, and sometimes things are just mentioned and then suddenly swept under the carpet. So if a governor who knows his powers, who knows that he's not an emperor, who can decide to suspend the house, close the doors, use security agencies that are supposed to prevent the commission of crime, to stop people from sitting, what is the business of police in escorting a minority to sit and preventing a majority from accessing a house. Akwa Ibom is fresh in our memory. And we keep having these challenges. So the issue is that the laws are not there. So some of these acts are criminalized in our statute books. The Constitution makes some of these things impeachable offenses. But let a house conceive, think, not to utter that they want to impeach the governor. They may never sit again. A House of Assembly in Nigeria did not sit for more than a year or two, and nothing happened. And people were going, somebody passed a budget with less than 5 legislators. In Nigeria, we were here, implemented the budget until he handed over. And nobody has taken him to an account. And the person will go on to assume higher responsibilities. And another legislature will clear that person when he's nominated as a minister. That is the bane of our society. We do not find it important to hold people accountable, to prosecute. So kidnappers are summarily executed. There's no investigation to find out those involved. Armed robbers are not, every time you hear, they were gunned down, they tried to escape. It's only in Nigeria we're always trying to escape. So until we learn to hold people accountable and responsible and allow the law enforcement agencies to do their work without contaminating them with politics.
Mazi, please stay with you. I know that my colleague Blessing will come in shortly. But still on what you are saying, the abuse and misuse of powers by the executive branch, and the fact that law enforcement officers or law enforcement agents then get co-opted into this flagrant disregard for the provisions of the law and of the Constitution. Could this arise from the fact that, one, you have the so-called security votes, and secondly, you have state governments that fund, in a sense, the police apparatus, and the police commissioner is part of the State Security Council, and if you are therefore not in the good books, just like a lawmaker, then you will know that it's a hardship post that you have come to. How can we obviate this, which is the reality that we are dealing with?
It's a part of it which you may have alluded to. Is the executive's ability to operate a slush fund called security vote, and has ability to access funds which they dispense like an ATM machine. So you're a good commissioner of police, then the governor will keep giving you money to make you happy. And the commissioner of police does not see himself as an agent of state. He sees himself as a lackey of the executive, there to do their wish. And that is why you also see when policemen are posted to work with VIPs, politicians, politically exposed persons, their allegiance ceases to be to the state and to the police. It becomes to the individual with whom they are working because he has made their life better. And they know that as long as they do what he or she wants, they can get the unfortunate thing we call automatic promotion. Undeserving privileges they enjoy that their peers who do not have such opportunities enjoy. So you see society that is run on a benefit system. So what you benefit determines what is your perception of the law. And even when you know that what you're doing is right, you also know that your paymasters will always get you out of trouble. And so it pollutes the entire thing. And it still gets back to that absence of checks, absence of accountability.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mazi. Let's dig further. I like the fact you raised something about a system that looks toward benefits or the benefiting system. Where does that leave us in all of this? Because if everyone is throwing up their arms, we're helpless, which definitely is not the situation. 20 years we've been able to carry on the democratic process, and it's still something we want to advance on. If this is where we are, what do we need to do differently? You already talked about aspects of recruitment process. Where do we begin to tinker with?
Well, apart from the aspect of recruitment process, I also want to suggest that there should be a sort of training and retraining of the legislators. The legislators, because you will find out that most of them are not in tandem with the dynamics that is in the field. Most of them, they just stay back at their localities without even being exposed to what is happening at the international level. That's one. Number two, I want to also suggest that we should kind of move away from all manners of legislative businesses that sometimes the state legislators engage themselves in to what I call service delivery. We should be able to at least legislate on issues that will be able to propel service delivery to the people. And then I also want to say that with the independence that has been granted to the legislatures now, I want to be at the state legislatures, I also want to suggest that they should be able to utilize whatsoever funds that they have for the benefit of what they will be able to produce for the society. My fear, anyway, about the financial autonomy to the state legislature, if care is not taken, if the leadership are not able to manage the system very well, we might have maybe cases of maybe changes in the leadership, because somebody will just come with issues that, Speaker, this is what we got, what have you done with the money? Before you know, there will be frequent changes in leadership. So the leadership should be able to be transparent and be open to the other colleagues to ensure that they are carried along. So we should have stability in the system.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Kente, thank you very much. That issue will come up as to what they will do with their financial autonomy. Perhaps, as a serious joke, persons would want the EFCC and ICPC to set up their kiosks, near each House of Assembly, so that as soon as the money comes, you can trace, who is doing what with it and so on and so forth. But one point,
this in that particular location.
Yes, that's right. One point that I would like us to return to is what was said yesterday, and it's also been hinted at today. Honorable Chair, why is it that citizens, you have citizens of the country, but why is it that residents or people of a state have not focused on the state legislature? The same problem we have at the local government, unlike what we see at the national level. Why have they not focused, knowing that this is a crucial arm of government that will enable them get the public goods that the Constitution envisages for them? And so in answering that question, how can we get the people of a state to now begin to focus and ask questions and demand, that the right performance of the functions of the state legislature?
Okay. I mean, the double-barrel question. The first is, why have they not been? You see, you can't give what you don't have. How many of the people who actually vote in the legislators understand the job of a legislator? Because they see you're right there at the grassroots. They come to ask you for monies for weddings, funerals, and very funny things, because they believe you being in government, as soon as you enter, they open a vault and you'll be dispensing like the ATM, according to Mazi. Fine, but that is what they see. You are the governor they see in their own mind. So they don't understand there's a separation of powers, that you don't even have the opportunity to give a contract out. They believe, you didn't give us this, you didn't give us that. That's why you see, when they go to legislators, go to campaign, they say, I'll give you water. Can you give? You don't have the powers to approve water. The best you can do is to influence those things coming. And influencing them means you need to dance or measure to the whims and caprices of the executive. However, in dealing with how they need to come around this and for service delivery to those to be held accountable, they need to now understand in the process our systems need to be cleaned up. First, we need to create a society where people appreciate the position of a legislator. Your position is to be the mouthpiece of, when I can't speak for the things that bother us, we should speak for you. Now, the moment they have the understanding of where we should be, then it becomes different. It's different at the national stage because everything converges at the center. So every eyes comes right at the center. So you have it's heated up right there. At the state level as well, it comes to a level, to an extent. But because the position of the governor is also very powerful at the state, you don't get to see the state legislature be the person, or the person, the institution they actually should be, or ought to be.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We'll still take the same question to our guest in the Ibadan studio, Honorable Ayola Adeleke. for the people, we can't have this blanket question, mind that the people actually do not understand what questions they should be asking, because invariably, the politicians actually come to the people to actually ask for their votes. And in so doing, they will have their needs in the community. Share your experience with us, how meeting the people really has helped in your legislative business, as well as also taking into consideration their needs as it concerns their output for democracy.
Our people don't even know the job of a legislature. That is number one problem. The second problem is that, as my colleague has said, they thought you are central bank of your state, that whenever you are coming home weekend, you come with money and you must divide money to them. This is the major problem that make, even though you get penny, you spend it to them, and still they cannot be satisfied. Because our people thought our honorable will come home weekend, you get a series of letters in your house demanding for this, demanding for that. All these things cannot help. The people who voted us in should be in position to question us. What are you doing in the house? What the project you people are planning for us in the house? What your governor is doing about social projects in the town which is not completed? All these things, they will not ask for it. But the personal gain of their own is what our electorate always be happy with, what we bring for them. Even some will not even go to their locality, because you don't say anytime you go there, it's problem. Money, 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 money. My advice, again, is that our electorate should know that the members of assembly are not there to do projects unless now, if they allocate funds to them. Because there's no any allocation for members of assembly before. And from your little salary and running costs, we are doing all what we are doing. But see, people don't believe it. For example, like me, I did 14 boreholes the first time. I built primary school with my constituency little amount they gave to me. But people say you're supposed to do more when you don't even have where to put and to get the money from. So people should not be worrying the members of the House of Assembly for projects that they cannot even lay their hand on. Again, we should be very, very careful with our boys in our locality, because some of them will go and cause problems somewhere and they will put it on the honorable, that honorable is there for us, which is anybody who wants to use our youth for thuggery, for anything, should put his own son first in the front and let other people follow. But our people will not listen to this. When their children will be in a good place, which they don't have problem taking care of their own children, but they will be using another children as a thug to be following us. For me, throughout my stay in the house, I didn't allow any thuggery to follow me. And I moved fully within my people. So I'm advising the people who are now in the House of Assembly, move fully with your people. Don't encourage thuggery. Don't use...
All right, Honorable Ayala Adeleke, thank you very much there for your comments. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll return to our guests and also take some of the tweets that have come in.
Chief, good morning, sir. You are here already?
No, now my spirit there, my body there for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me job questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I am sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Later.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hotsports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Yes, so in the home stretch, still on Good Morning Nigeria, taking a look at 20 years of democracy and state legislature. Now we have tweets, and let's get some of these reactions read out. I have this one from Shoaibu Alkali. It says, in 20 years of our democracy, state houses of assemblies have contributed some positive developments. We are calling on them to redouble efforts to make a bigger difference, especially states like Borno and Zamfara. Beg your pardon.
Ababola Hambabs has this tweet: why we cannot wish away the contributions of state assemblies, most, if not all of them, across party lines have been rubber stamps in the hands of their executives. Many have been willing accomplices to the governors. Things must change.
Jelly-Jack Solomon tweets, Nigeria state assemblies have failed in its enormous responsibilities of enhancing good governance and being catalysts for social economic development in such states, because it is bedeviled by a poor resource base that border on inadequate supportive staff, lack of financial autonomy, absence of state-of-the-art equipment, and above all, members that are inexperienced on legislative matters.
Olowo Kere Olajide tweets, State House of Assembly will still be influenced by governors, and this is because the governors, as chief security officers of their state, will use state power to dictate when to sit and what to deliberate upon.
Okay, there's another tweet from Dele as well as but let me go to Fregene Godfrey. He said, concerning the state legislative in the states, the legislators are powerless because they have not seen any legislative debate that impacted, okay, for him now, hasn't seen any state legislative debates that have impacted the common man of the state, except the legislators themselves, who smile to the banks, receiving their huge allowances.
Yahaya Wada tweets, now, until state houses of assembly are held accountable, they will, I take that again. Until the state houses of assembly are held accountable for whatever actions they take, only then can we hope to see them representing the masses that voted for them. The fact is, as it stands now, most of the houses of assembly members across the country were handpicked by governors. So those are the tweets that we want to take in the meantime. Let's bring in again Dr. Kente, former Speaker of the Taraba State House of Assembly. One of the points that has been raised has to do with, why people of the state, residents of the state do not, as it were, hold lawmakers of the state to their responsibilities and therefore help to strengthen their role and their functions. And in responding to that question, Honorable Ayola Adeleke Enibadan said something about the misunderstanding of the role of a lawmaker. Some persons have also tended to argue that, while responding to this question now, take this along, that the lifestyle almost sudden change in lifestyle of papas of yesterday who are now lawmakers creates this misunderstanding in the minds of the people to say, suddenly you are the new governor that we are seeing now. A man who didn't have a bicycle yesterday, today, first of all, probably begins, I don't think any of them has a Tokumbo. Probably begins with a brand new car. His house is changed. He begins to have houses, and every now and then, he's out of the country. And he comes back. So that creates, a misunderstanding in the minds of the people. As your colleagues have said, how might these issues be addressed so that the serious business of being a legislator is focused on for the delivery of public goods?
You see, in answering this question, I think the two sides of the coin shares the blame. Because one, on the part of I want to say generally the politicians, the legislators as a matter of fact, while campaigning, instead of focusing on the responsibilities of a legislator, some of our people go to make promises. I'm going to build bridges across this river, I'm going to build roads here, I'm going to do this and that. And then on the other side, the people also, just as Mr. Ayola from Ibadan said, the people don't even know the role a legislature is supposed to, a legislator is supposed to do. They think once you are in government, once you are in the parliament, some channels of funds are open to you on daily basis. So they bombard you with all manners of requests here and there, to the point that some legislators even, they are to some extent discouraged from even performing their statutory responsibilities. So I want to believe that the legislators on their own part too should be able to create an avenue that you can interact with your constituents to explain to them. As I am speaking, I don't think I stand to be corrected. Any state legislator, any member of the state assembly that has a constituency office, that people go there to lodge their complaints or to maybe know actually what is happening, so that they can also contribute to whatever issue that is being discussed in the parliament. Probably the National Assembly, to some extent, they are trying. We see some constituency offices here and there. But at the state level, the state legislators are not engaged in opening constituency offices so that they can be able to interact with their constituents. Secondly, I also want to suggest that if there's the concept of what I call town hall meetings, if the legislators can organize town hall meetings with their people to explain to the people, this is what we are doing. This is the situation in the state assembly. What are your contributions? If you are getting money, tell them, yes, I've gotten small, I brought small for you. Give them the share, let them go. You are not getting, just tell them, this is the situation I'm in. At a point, personally, I was in a very tight corner that I tried to maintain my relationship with the people at home, explaining to them what we are passing through, what I'm passing through, and what the state is passing through, and what the assembly is also passing through. So I want to believe if the both sides are able to explain to themselves, the people should be able to understand that these are the responsibilities of a legislator. The legislator also should be able to create an avenue that they can interact with the people so that they also know the situation is also passing through.
Lifestyle changes. Sudden lifestyle changes.
Yes, of course, you should not expect that I'm representing people and then I should appear anyhow. You understand? My image is a reflection of the society I come from, or the people I represent. So at least if I'm able to have some little privileges, I should be able to at least appear in such a way that my people also should be encouraged. So, but unfortunately, as my former Right Honourable Speaker said, to some extent, at the end of the tenure, in fact, if you see a former state legislator, in fact, at the point in that you pity him.
Why?
Some of them.
Why?
Yes, because he changed his lifestyle at a particular time, and they go to a period that he's no longer there, and some of the privileges he was getting are no longer coming. Okay. So he has reduced himself to the lowest level of lifestyle.
Perhaps he forgot where he was coming from, so he refused to maintain status quo. All right, let's take on this aspect, which is something at the national level as well. The frequent turnover for legislature, which is not, for some, saying is not helping to deepen what we have because of the quality, people maybe just for a particular year or for the period of that particular session. At the state level, what has been the turnover? What has it been like, and how has this helped either to deepen the democratic process or to take away from it? How do we work on that as well?
Yeah, I think the best way to deal with that, for me, I'll say the legislature suffers the biggest setback in the democracy. Simply because whenever you have military insurgents and terrorism, you always have the courts, which is the judicial arm, and you always have the executive arm. And now they leave precedents. When the governor is leaving, the military governor or whatever, or governor to governor, there's a handover note to say, these are the things I have done in this ministry, in this sector, that sector, these are the things I've done. So there could be a follow-up. In the judiciary, there are precedents, the laws, the judicial pronouncements made and all of that, you have them all set down. But in the legislature, the best you have is Hansards, where you have the records of proceedings of the House, which does not tell you what a former assembly has done, a session. For instance, if a session goes, the first assembly or second assembly is gone. Nobody makes reference to see how they debated, where they stood, or the man you're handing over, you're leaving as a constituency representative, the person taking over from you has no clue of what you did, so he knows where to start running from. So there's a break, a sharp break in communication. And so you now have to, the man coming in has to start learning afresh what to do and how to better. And he only does to the extent of his weight and what he can do, and he leaves it, and the next man cannot continue.
Shouldn't that be a concern for us?
Yeah, that's the concern. That's why you need to bring out the problem. So you now let us see, how do we deal with this? We can only deal with this by ensuring that we leave precedents for those who are coming behind us. And at the same time, allow the turnover is too quick. Allow members of the legislature to grow on the job so that they can understand and appreciate, they become better persons that are more confident when talking to, if you're grilling a commissioner nominee, for instance, you're very confident because you've been there a long time, you understand the rudiments, you understand the tricks and all of whatever thing you'll be able to play to the benefit of the public, not necessarily for yourself. So this will help make them grounded as good legislators, but here in our country, because democracy, everybody sees, like you said, oh, your lifestyle changes. You don't chop your own, come out. Let them come. So those are the mentalities we need to take away to allow the proper mentality to breathe in, which is to grow the institution. You need to grow the institution because I tell people, in a state, you can have, the judicial arm can have courts in every local government area of a state. You can also have, what's it called now? The ministry of, whatever ministry in any part of the state, as many as the governor wants to create. But you can only have one legislature in a state. You can't have two, and you can't have branches. So it's the smallest arm, but it's the first arm of government that should be actually looked into, and let us develop the institution, strengthen it in such a manner that it can actually take its rightful place in the democratic process.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to bring in Dr. Kente before Bazi Afan comes in. With regard to the transitioning from one assembly to the other, and therefore ensuring a carryover of institutional memory, Hansards are not kept for the fun of it. I mean, so is it not the business of any lawmaker to say, look, let me go back in time to check out what my colleagues did, to apprise yourself of what the issues were. But assuming the Hansards are really very bulky, what then could be the role of the Assembly Commission? Could you then begin to have executive summaries?
You see, that is why I suggested that there should be a sort of training and retraining of the legislators so that you'll be able to you'll be acquainted with what has actually happened in the past so that you have the opportunity of building on what's already on ground. Unfortunately, just as most of my colleagues have said earlier on, I still want to emphasize the issue of recruitment. When you bring somebody that is not well grounded in maybe, I don't want to say educationally sound anyway, that cannot have enough time to even read and understand what is on ground, it becomes a problem.
All right, Honorable Kente, thank you very much. Mazi Afam Osigwe, this is my last question for you. It is clear from what we hear and what we read that state governors are the leaders of the parties in their states. So asking the parties in the states to intervene to ramp up the performance and quality of the state legislature is like asking the governor himself to shoot himself in the foot, as it were. But otherwise, what should be the role of the political parties in ensuring that this critical arm of government performs its constitutional responsibility, frees itself, as it were, to a considerable extent from the overbearing influence of state governors, the influence which has become negative in terms of the output and quality of the legislatures at the state level?
Well, that's just like asking how would the houseboy also make the governor to work? Because the truth there is that the governors also fund the political parties and also determine the leadership. So, and that is the problem. That's why I said that the unbridled lust for power by the governors and their quest to act in an imperial manner will make these things never to work. It will not work. And that's why you see governors, once they get in fighting with their godfather, because the moment he comes in there with that chief executive mentality, you don't tell him what to do. But it's unfortunate because any person who has run to be governor, who has been elected a governor, should ordinarily seek that which will be in the best interest of the people. But that is not the case. The governors want their best interest, so they don't want any person to talk. They want every person to take directions from them. And so criticism is equated with rebellion. And the governors don't want any person to object to anything they have said. And Dr. Kente said here, a governor telling her and said, don't add a kobo, don't remove a kobo. And that is their mindset. In other words, who are you? You do what I say. So it's more like garbage in, garbage out. It will never work. And I said it here, and he has borne it out. Most governors prefer ill-educated, ill-equipped, and otherwise people with a servitude mindset to be in the house. Because they want you to be eternally grateful they put you there. So they draw up lists. So that's why you see primaries are not in the real sense held. Elections sometimes do not present the people with an option. So you'll always have this problem. And we'll see a state party chairman that does not align with the governor will be out. And the governor will not fund the party. That is the truth. So until we change our mindset, things that work in other places will never work here.
Mazi Afam Osigwe, former General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, thank you very much for coming on the program. We'd also like to appreciate Dr. Josiah Sabo Kente, former Speaker of Taraba State House of Assembly. It was a great pleasure having you again today. Right Honorable Victor Oche, former Speaker Delta State House of Assembly. It was a great time having you around too. I would like to express our appreciation too to Chief Whip, I think Minority Whip now, your State House of Assembly, Honorable Ayola Amos Adeleke. Thank you very much. Sorry we couldn't come back to you, but we must go now. We appreciate your insight on the program today. Okay, time now. Let's quickly take a look at what's happening in the foreign scene.
The United States President Donald Trump has asked his supporters not to lose faith in his team as he officially launches his 2020 re-election campaign. The U.S. President made this known at a rally in Florida while condemning Democrats for trying to destroy the country. Early polls conducted puts Trump behind some potential Democratic challengers. Senior figures from the White House, including the Vice President Mike Pence and outgoing Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, also spoke at the rally. Now, the United Nations has called for a thorough and transparent investigation into the death of the former president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, in court as thousands of people across the Middle East paid their last respect to him. The UN Human Rights Office said the investigation should encompass all aspects of his treatment during nearly 6 years in incarceration. The former president's son reveals that Egypt's first democratically elected president was buried with a small family ceremony early on Tuesday, a day after he suffered a fatal heart attack in a Cairo court.
All right, tidbits there from the foreign scene. Let's go over now to our arts and entertainment desk.